Well, that's very strong. Do we want that strong just yet? No, I don't think we do. I want to make it quite a bit less. What's that? That's a bit better. Okay. So this is nice. This is your big run. This is your, lots of practice doing this now. Start anywhere you like. Just follow the curve. Now, and remember, of course, we've got, we're coming to about here somewhere, although this part, for me, has got a lot of colour, but otherwise it's too white. So some parts of this you'll barely see the colour because, of course, my wash is about the same colour as this area. But over here we'll see it more. It's just nice to warm up with something easy. And I could start bringing my brush into that highlighted part of the petal. Just introducing a little bit of colour in there. And we'll come back into here. That's quite a bit more of a shadow that we can do. But for the moment we'll just do all the light stuff. And it really depends on how you feel as to which way you want to work, whether it's up page, which can be easier. So I can also drift off into the top of that petal edge there. That's quite nice. It's quite light up there. I think, I don't know, I quite like it. I might keep it even lighter than what my image is. We'll see how I go. In the photo there's a little bit more colour up there, but that's quite nice. There we go, there's Tanya.
Good morning.
Hello.
Wow, it looks great.
Just getting onto the biggest bit. So this is where you really get to practice your long straight lines. I was going to say, I haven't put as much colour in this as I actually see on the photo, and I don't know, when I looked at it this morning, I quite liked it. It's sort of this, it is a soft baby pink, rather than, in general, rather than my photos a little bit darker. I quite like it like this, so, I might keep it this colour. I'm not necessarily altogether worried about being so faithful to a photo. I mean, this is my own personal painting, so it's not like I'm putting it into a botanical show, though I could, where they get very particular. And also, if you look at, like, when I was taking photographs of this painting, this flower, there's so many different stages of, colour and all the other flowers. some are stronger and some are paler than others, even on the same plant, of course. So, you know, you can just do what you want and nobody will know. So if I decide that this is as, you know, dark as I want it to go, then I might just leave it at that. You can add a little bit more strength if you feel like you want a nice poppy pink sort of colour. I think it would all be okay. I'm not particularly strict. I know there are people, they're more strict with everything. In fact, I don't worry too much about anything. I mean, the paints that I use, my water that I use, it'll stay in the jar like this for, well, this isn't a very, you know, I'm not making a lot of muddy water for a start off, but my water's stained pink, but I won't change that. I'm not like, oh, I've got to go and have fresh water every time I start a painting, or, you know, every time I start a session, stuff like that. Don't do that. I leave my paints out, drying on their palette from a tube. It doesn't seem to be a problem. It's quite nice. So I'm a little bit more relaxed, perhaps, than others. So this is where you sort of get to sit and play, you know, you're just slowly building up colour, obviously referencing back to the photo, seeing there's a few lines that look like they're coming through a little bit stronger, so if that's somewhere where I want a bit of colour, I'll start building them up just like this. Watching how it sort of blends out with the rest of the flower, of course, and shape. And how it finishes as well. And I tend to use my brush really like a drawing implement, you know. When we first started this, if you remember, I almost go over the whole thing with sort of washes of colour that you almost draw in, and I quite often use my brush more like a pencil, because it's quite dry, right? There's no real big wash of colour on it, so I can use it to draw lines literally rather than paint. So it's a half-half. Some nice little fine feather lines down in through there. When I know that my brush is really sort of dry, so it takes quite a bit of pressure to get some marks, that's when I can come in and literally draw in a few little details. So this is almost like colouring in with a pencil. So I'm just going to add a little bit of colour in through here, because in my photo it does have a bit more pink through this side. So I could do that. But it also sort of has it in ridges of colour. A few ridges that I want to make sure I get. Just interesting shapes. My brush is super dry and I can literally just wisp over the top edge quite easily then. Okay, so that's looking reasonably good. There's some interesting things coming through. And not much on my brush actually, so let's put a little bit more on. And this side is definitely needs to be darker. So let's see how it looks. A little blend with the water brush. I'm going to come in here with a different colour to really make that into a shadow, but for the first little bit we'll do magenta. And I want to add another rib through there. Now that my brush is getting a little bit drier, just come in and just take some of the colour up into that highlighted area, top edge. Just blend that little line. And where else do we want? We'll just soften that area there, just little bits of colour. I'm not even sure what. Oh, there's still colour left on my brush. And I want to come down into here. The stripe's lovely, but it needs a bit of work.
Denise,
Yes.
I would have two questions.
Yes.
One is about the papers. You said this one you're using is Fabriano?
Yes.
And do you notice that when you go over with additional washes, it sort of removes the ones you have below, or not too much?
No, it doesn't, because I make sure my washes are always dry.
Okay.
And also what I'm putting over it isn't a really wet wash. I mean, if I was to do a much wetter wash over this, then yes, it might start moving things underneath. But because what I'm putting on is a very, a really dry, just little dry lines, right? You can really just go over that quite easily.
Okay.
But that's the key, is not to use too much water.
Exactly. Okay. So it has to be quite dry, so to not lift what is below.
Yeah, to not move, and also yes, and not to play around with it too much. So for instance, there I put on that. Here I put on a bit more magenta, and I'm letting that dry. If I go back into that too quickly and start putting on other colours, it will move because it's now slightly damp. If I wanted to, I could put on another colour, but all I would do is do it in sort of maybe just 1 or 2 layers, and then leave it. I wouldn't keep going back and forth on it.
Okay. Okay.
You kind of have a small chance to put in extra things if it's not quite dry, but you just sort of do it in 1 or 2 passes of colour, and then you have to leave it.
Okay. And then I don't know if it's the video, but your flower looks more violet than the photo. Was this on purpose?
No, it's probably just a video.
Okay.
Because what this mostly the color of this flower is actually just magenta. So if you have, what color paints do what brand of paints do you have?
I don't even know.
Okay, I mean, but any magenta from any brand is really going to be this almost the same magenta as I'm using. They don't change that much. So if you imagine this whole painting should basically look quite pink. Yes, unfortunately, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, it's the photos. It's also your monitor. People's monitors are different, are set different. Some are a lot warmer. Different companies set them warmer and cooler. And so unless you've calibrated your monitor as a, you'll get their interpretation of what they want you to see in a way. But I could have made this purple if I wanted. I mean, it's just a,
it's
isn't it? It's like you can make it any colour you like, really. So I would definitely encourage you to be like, well, if you want to make yours look a little bit more warm and peachy, or you want it to make it cool, and it's okay.
It looks good. It's really good.
Okay, so our shadows we definitely need to get into. So why don't we do that just at the end of this little round, and then you'll be able to do that for the week, and then we can do touch-ups next week. So actually I want to just make a little bit stronger magenta, a little bit stronger. Let's see how strong that is. It's very strong. Okay, I want to just come in through my shadow. There's a little few lines that are stronger through here. Just to help blend that outwards, I think. Now, it's not quite as strong at the edge, so I'm just going to work in here a little bit with what's left on my brush, just making it slightly more depth of colour and a little bit brighter. And I'm just coming into the top edge there. Just bringing that pink just in there a little bit to blend that colour up into there a little. Just soften that with the brush. Okay, because what we're actually wanting to do is to add, I'm going to add a little bit of that green very carefully. So that's that moss green. Terre Verte, made with ultramarine blue and a Windsor lemon, or a lemon yellow, some other cool yellow colour. You can make it, or you can buy it in a tube, which I have. So I'm just, with my brush just like that, I'm going to run it down really softly. It's just a soft wash, just to start muting down that area here that really is a shadow curve. And it kind of comes sort of in a V. You may not see too much difference. It does help. And I'll build up on that a little bit, but just a sort of a little soft introduction of that colour first. Let that dry for a moment. See, if I keep going over that now, because that area is quite damp, then you'll start moving the layer underneath. So if I let that sit for a few moments, and I can work on this side, and then I don't feel like I'm going to get into trouble. So I'm just, this is where the sort of the darkest area is, but I do bring the colour out a little bit because it's just a nice curve starting on the petal, so I want to sort of blend into that. Have I got anything on the brush? I think I need to make it a little stronger. It's not that strong. Okay. So I'd like some lines of this coming through, not just a wash of colour. Do I use moss green for violet or other colours? I'll use it for other colours, because maybe, for instance, in a yellow leaf, yellow flower, I will put a moss green or something on. Cause some, if you think of a yellow flower, quite often their shadow colours throw to be a bit more green. Now, not green, but you know, a muted greeny shadow. So I'll use it on yellows. I use it wherever I feel I want to make something a little bit duller and mute that colour. It works quite well. Let's see, blues wouldn't work so well. We don't have many blue flowers, do we? Pink, yes. Red, yes. Red. So that's quite nice, like that actually. I wonder if you should leave it. I might just leave that there, just like that, because it's quite a good depth of colour. Hang on. And this moss green, so this Terre Verte, is very transparent, so it's very handy. One you make, if you make it up with any sort of lemon yellow, it won't be as transparent, because those kind of lemon yellows do have some sort of slightly opaque colouring in them. But this, and see how it just goes over your existing colours really nicely. So he's a little bit accident proof that way, in that if you put on so long as your wash isn't too strong, if you put them on, you're not going to cover anything, which is really nice. You're just going to see what's underneath still, which is good. Which is why I like transparent colours, or semi-transparent colours. Even semi-transparent colours. I suppose this may be considered semi-transparent, I'm not sure, but they're really great for that. So I'm just the last moment or two, just with what's on my brush, just gently intensify that edge. And as I said, I see this shadow sort of comes down and a little bit more of a V, so you can just do that a little bit, let it dry and have a look at it next week and see if it's enough or I need to add a little more. My mouth isn't going. There we go. Just whatever's on my brush, which may not be much of anything, right? Strangely, even if it's not much on your brush, it seems to make quite an impact when you still run it across the paper. So keep that in mind. Not at all am I wanting a green look to this, I'm just wanting a darker look. Okay, so I think that's kind of enough for this week, and it'll be a good place to sort of stop and see over the week how it looks. I can intensify some of those colours next week. Let's see. Just add a little in there. Yep, I think that's sort of it. Don't think there's much on the brush anyway. Okay, so that's that. We definitely need to sort that out. It needs a little bit more of something and finish off that edge. But that's your weekly task. And I'll do all the things I normally do. I'll send the photos and sort out the video for you. And yep. And yeah, you can see how you go with that. We got around it quite well actually. We could definitely do a little bit more of the shadows in there next week, and just sort of finish it off. It would still take me a couple of hours to maybe keep puttering around doing over everything. We only have one more hour together, but you'll get most of it exactly how I'd do it. So that's it, ladies. Oh, sorry, I missed a question. There was a question that just popped up. I don't know. Somebody's very clever at typing questions, and I'm not quite sure how to get to those. Let's see. Chat. Let's see. Is next week the last? Yes, next week is the last. Is it? Hang on.
Yes.
Yeah. Hang on a minute.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. It is the last. It is the last. Oh well, if you find yourself at a loss, I only decided this yesterday. Literally yesterday, I thought, well, I might do a class and I might do another group in January. Just as it's getting colder here, and there's less and less excuse to go outside. It's more to stay inside. So I thought I'd still I'll do another class because it's quite nice. So think about that. If you ever thought that you needed to continue, you can join me. I'll probably post about that. It's a bit. I'm not sure what everybody does, but when most of the world's in sort of not lockdown, but they're certainly not travelling as much for January and so on. I thought maybe that would be a good time. Everybody could hang out together and we'll paint something